It is the third model introduced in the 2025 Gear Fighter Dendoh collaboration, sporting the likeness of the illustrious Lady Vega. This is GFD02 Polar Vega, with a kit of Commander, Ranged Sword, Unsuccess M, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Lightweight, which buffs all leg stats, minus armor and heavy limit, if the leg's heavy limit is not exceeded. Now, as the first human model of an all-mecha series that we've gotten collaborations for already in this Dendoh collaboration, Lady Vega certainly does not introduce any new skills such as, say, Gear Ogre did, but is still an exceptionally well-rounded kit as an all-rounder type for anyone that is looking to use her. And taking the original source reference as a very speedy, agile, and mixed-range fighter that Lady Vega is, Polar Vega most certainly steers right up that same alley. Commander on the head part is a support-based skill that, when activated, serves as two separate buffs that are activating at the same time. The first of which is that it grants a stack of radar sight to self and allies, and radar sight will boost success rate by a very large percentage, but also negate any conceal or stealth effects of the enemy side. So this means that if the enemy's trying to hide from you or stay out of your sight in order to, say, attack from behind or attack behind a shield or hide behind a shield, radar sight allows you to say no sir and bypass and ignore everything. Now, additionally, Commander also applies a stack of stealth to the user, and stealth specifically also is nice as it renders the user unable to be targeted unless they're already being targeted for their entire next cooldown and heating phase. So this allows you to not only buy yourself just a couple extra seconds of time, especially to recoup if you're finding yourself backed against the corner, but stealth also has an extra added effect to it. And that effect allows the user to bypass any active shields that are placed on the enemy side. So this means if someone's trying to intercept Polar Vega and prevent her from attacking her targeted enemy, the stealth allows her to bypass right past him and attack exactly who she wants, no ifs, ands, or buts, period. Ranged Sword on the right arm is a melee skill that has a number of very unique conditions to it, and in fact, its overall effects change relative to the enemy's distance from Polar Vega. If the enemy is deemed close enough to Polar Vega, such as right at the command line, or I'd say right up to roughly about the halfway point in their cooldown or heating, Ranged Sword gets a damage plus and also gets a piercing effect added to it, making it extremely painful if the enemy gets up close in Lady Vega's face. However, if the target is deemed far away from Lady Vega, such as, say, if they are on the farther half of their heating cooling or just finishing their cooling phase, it instead gets a success plus and the attack converts into an AoE instead, which will damage all parts and spread the damage across all active parts equally. So this makes it a very solid mixed range attack that you can get some pretty good damage and really consistent performance from overall. And with a fairly solid base damage at 1721, it's going to be hitting fairly hard, whether it's either going to be as a piercing attack up close or as an AoE damage attack from afar. And heating and cooling in the mid to high 600s means that she can use this pretty quickly with very little penalty on her cooldown when she's prepping to use another skill. Unsuccess M on the left arm is a shooting attribute skill with a gunpowder attribute attached to it instead, so Unsuccess Missile. But it has a very unique effect to it in the fact that when attacking the enemy, it will debuff their success stat by 50% as long as the effect remains active. So basically, putting it in perspective, you're essentially smokescreening the target when you attack him with Unsuccess M. So this makes it a lot easier for anyone on the allied side of the field to dodge or graze this particularly afflicted enemy while this effect is active, and make it much more likely that if they are able to land a hit, it's not going to be very powerful and extremely low chance for critical hits on top of that because of the staggering debuff you put on their success stat. Since, as a reminder, success ties your likelihood of landing hits and your likelihood of landing crits on top of that. Biped legs means that Polar Vega will have very solid coverage across all terrains and a fairly mixed range terrain compatibility across the board. And her stats are actually pretty solid as well as far as a mixed range, speedy, agile type is concerned. A base mobility of 899 is very good, as this means she can certainly get off on the right foot, pun intended, as far as speed is concerned, with no real assistance required between terrain bonuses or Meta-Rodder bonuses or anything else of the like. An evade of 1806 is very good though, as this means that as long as she's not in a no dodge penalty in cooldown or heating, it's going to be very difficult to land a hit on her. So this means that you're going to have a very easy time dodging or grazing as long as the enemy is not able to touch you, which ties very easily back into Unsuccess M, because the lower their success, the easier it is for Lady Vega to dodge and graze. A melee resist of 822 and a shoot resist of 893, they're not terrible, I guess you can say, but they're also not great either, as Lady Vega does put a lot of emphasis on dodging or grazing more than actually tanking hits. But again, consider Unsuccess M to kind of possibly negate and counter this point. However, considering lightweight in the skill set as well means that she does get an all leg stats boost if her heavy limit is not met or exceeded. And given that she is not using a single heavy part at all with the heavy support of 1, these stats are going to be considerably higher than what you see actually on paper. So she will be notably faster, notably dodgy, and just a little bit better on the damage reduction overall. In the armor department, she's packing about 3539 for the head, about 3359 for the right arm, and 3419 for the left, and just shy of 3500 for the legs. So kind of in that expected little sweet spot where you want to be as far as HP is concerned. So if she does end up having to take a hit for whatever reason, she is able to dodge or graze it and tank the hit fairly well and keep the damage on the down low, just as long as it doesn't hit her too terribly hard. All that being said, though, as a pure set score, I very easily have to rate Polar Vega a very well-rounded 7 out of 10. Even if she does put a very high emphasis on dodging or grazing, which is kind of a risky move in a game where high DPS is kind of the reigning king, she does it exceptionally well. Commander having a heating and cooling of over 1000 means that she can fire that off very, very fast and extremely quickly. Ranged sword providing very mixed range and extremely consistent damage and performance overall. The only real consideration here to keep in mind is the low success at 847. So people may be dodging or grazing you just as easily as you are them, but that can kind of come and go based on the effects of ranged sword. And of course, Unsuccess M for being able to complement her high dodge and the high likelihood of her being able to keep her damage as low as possible by debuffing the enemy's success directly. As mixed parts, I do have to rate her equally at a 7 out of 10 for these same reasons. You can use all 3 of her skills just about anywhere with incredible versatility no matter how you choose to use them. Range sword is probably going to be one of the most user-friendly here, but if you choose not to use anything on an extremely lightweight build, you could also use her biped legs with lightweight in a lot of very fantastic situations. So something very easy to keep in mind as you're planning to use Polar Vega, either as a pure set or as mixed parts.